These two student supervisors are discussing the evaluations of students that they supervise. Both performers are white, cis females raised by married parents that still live in the house they grew up in. They have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees from predominantly white institutions. Both supervisors completed the 30-minute online diversity and inclusion training required by their employer. That's us, by the way, that's UWL. They are evaluating a student of color.
So first, let's take a look at their professional communication skills.
They always seem to blurt out whatever they were responding. It seems like they don't have a filter when giving their opinion.
Yeah, it's not really what they said, it's how they say it. Sometimes I wish they wouldn't be so blunt with their words.
So I feel like we can't really give them a high score for communication. If they could just figure out how to say things a little bit more politely, we could have marked them as excellent.
I think this would be a really good skill for them to work on next semester. We can also remind them to enunciate their words. At times, they used too much slang, and it was hard to understand them.
This is a search and screen panel having just completed an interview with a candidate. They are about to complete their equal employment opportunity training required by their employer, still us.
Okay, committee members, that's all I have for you today. Good luck with your search process. Does this seem familiar to anyone right now? Don't forget everything we talked about today when you're reviewing your applicants about avoiding bias and stereotypes and having a fair and inclusive search process. Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody good? I mean, this is like the 4th time I've had to do that. You would think that we'd get it by now.
Okay, let's talk about the first candidate. What do you think about their interview? Oh, maybe we can go back to the position description. Let's see, what's first? Possesses effective verbal and written communication skills. I guess I can start. They seem kind of soft-spoken in their job talk, and their accent was, well, distracting. I don't know how well students would engage with them.
And I was like really distracted by their hair the whole time. I mean, it was just so there. They also seemed to be like overly simplistic in how they described their research. Like it seemed like their terminology was different than the stuff that we would use. I don't know how well they'd adapt to teaching in our department.
How many of you have seen verbiage like effective communication or good communicator on job descriptions or supervisor reviews? This is the part where you can raise your hands. Yeah, a lot of us have seen that. If you haven't yet, you will. And how many of you have wondered, what does effective communication even mean? A couple of you? That's fair. And how many of you have tried to define it during one of these processes, either to yourself or to the group you're working with? Okay. About as many as I kind of expected. And these are more reflective and less raise your hands. How did you define it? Is it the words that someone used? The accepted terminology? Is it how someone speaks, whether they speak softly? Is it whether they speak abrasively? Somewhere in between. How does someone with an accent fit into the description of effective communication? Is it based on your ability to understand them? And broadly, at a predominantly white institution like ours, who are the ones who get to define effective communication? I'll give you a hint. They're probably white. So who gets left out of the definition? Why is effective communication on the description or the review in the first place? Who does it really serve? And who does it really hurt? Let's go back to our student evaluators.
All right, let's talk about the professionalism of this employee. The first box to check on our task list is displaying a positive attitude. Every time I saw them coming to work, they didn't seem really happy or to enjoy being here.
Well, I did see them smile every once in a while, and I did think they had positive interactions with their coworkers.
You must have seen that a lot more than I did.
All right, well, let's just average our 2 scores and give them that.
Next box to check is per professionalism is appropriate attire. How do you think they did with this category?
I do think they showed up in appropriate attire to work every day, don't you?
Well, I think they dressed the part, but the hair. I mean, it's okay for this job, but maybe it'd be good for us to tell them that when they're applying for jobs in the real world, that hairstyle may hold them back.
That's a really good point. We should definitely include that in their feedback.
Back to our search and screen committee.
Okay, so the next item on the job description says ability to work effectively with people across multiple levels of the organization.
So I had lunch with them, and the rest of the group seemed to have difficulty engaging with them. And I worry that they wouldn't be a good fit for the rest of the department. The last person we had on campus, though, they were really good. And I think they hit it off with everybody.
Yeah, this last candidate was kind of abrasive and confrontational. I don't know why they had so many questions about inclusive teaching practices or our equity plan. I mean, we're fair. Not sure how well that would go over with everybody on campus. They may be perceived as challenging the status quo. Besides, other candidates have already sent thank you notes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure they'd really want to make a career here. I mean, it might be hard for them to connect with people.
So this idea of company fit and a good fit, how many of you have heard this sort of talked about? Maybe it's not on the description. Yeah. And positive attitude. How many of you have heard, well, they have a positive attitude, right? It seems like they sound obvious attributes to someone you'd want on your team. They're a good fit, they get along with everyone, they have a positive attitude. So we hire people with positive attitudes, whom we think will get along with each other, whom will get along with the rest of our team. But not only do we lose out on potentially great candidates with diverse ways of thinking and doing things, we also create this culture of positive attitude and likability above all else. Especially true in the Midwest. And then we call it professionalism, professional communication. There's a way in which to communicate your disagreement with someone in a nice and positive way. It becomes taboo to talk about anything considered political, including race, gender. I'm going to say et cetera here, but there's a lot more to it. A lot. Anything that might stir the pot, or more accurately, disrupt the status quo. Let's call it what it is. We don't want to hire people who might challenge us, who might not like us, and who we might not like. And we try to evaluate people back into the boxes that we are comfortable with in using behaviors that are deemed professionalism. But continue to ask yourself, who is defining professionalism? Who does that serve? And more importantly, who does that hurt? Back to our evaluators.
All right, so we've looked at their professionalism and their communication. Now let's look at their time management.
Well, at my college job, I was taught to be early is to be on time, and to be on time is to be late. This student would probably benefit from hearing that phrase.
I completely agree with you. They were like 5 to 10 minutes late for a few shifts this semester, and it's so disrespectful of their coworkers' time. I think they could really improve upon their time management skills.
Maybe if they had a planner or used a schedule, then they could make it to their obligations on time.
That is the best suggestion I've ever heard. I will give them that feedback.
Angela Davis said, "Diversity without changing the structure, without calling for structural formation, simply brings those who were previously excluded into a process that continues to be racist, misogynistic as it was before." Also, shout out to Kaavu for sharing that to our Facebook group. I don't know if they're here, but thanks very much for that. Our university likes to think it's the cat's meow when it comes to diversity and inclusion. It's part of our strategic plan. Plus, we're better than others, right? But I challenge you to push past that. Being better than others is not the goal. Actually, this whole word of goal is a lie. Lost my place, sorry. Goal implies that there's some sort of finish line, some sort of end, some certificate you can put on your wall that says you're inclusive now. Good job. It's not really how it works. It's more like road construction. Everyone hates it. It's really uncomfortable. You have to take a detour on your way home. But then when you're done, the potholes are all filled in and you're happier. But then the road construction moves down the street and you have to detour again and it's uncomfortable. That's what this is like. This work does not stop. We have to continue to interrupt these definitions that we grew up with, these definitions of professionalism and effective communication and good company fit. We have to ask ourselves, who does this serve? Who does this hurt? The work doesn't stop. If we think we've achieved the goal, all we've really achieved is complacency.